It was supposed to be a calm, insightful discussion on CNN's Table for Five, where public figures shared personal stories over dinner. But when Meghan Markle joined the show alongside journalist Van Lathan, actor John Krasinski, activist Amanda Gorman, and chef Jose Andres, the evening took an unexpected turn. The cameras started rolling. Meghan sat poised in a cream-colored blouse, her tone polished yet firm. Van Lathan, known for his unapologetic honesty, sat opposite her, flipping through his notes. From the start, there was a tension that viewers could almost feel through the screen. The topic began innocently enough: how do public figures balance authenticity and public perception? Meghan smiled. I think when you've lived under intense scrutiny, authenticity becomes your armor. You can't please everyone, so you have to stay true to your values, even when the world twists your words. Van nodded thoughtfully. Fair, he said. But don't you think sometimes people confuse control with authenticity? Like, controlling the narrative versus living it. A small pause. Meghan's eyes flickered. Are you implying I control narratives? She asked, her tone light but edged with challenge. Van leaned forward. I'm saying it seems that every time someone questions your story, they're labeled toxic or racist. That's complicated, isn't it? The room fell silent. John Krasinski awkwardly reached for his water glass. Amanda Gorman shifted in her seat. Even Jose Andres froze mid-slice of his bread. Meghan inhaled slowly. With all due respect, Van, I've lived through enough public distortion to recognize when someone is oversimplifying my experience. The media didn't just misquote me, they weaponized me. Van didn't flinch. I get that. But don't you think it's fair for people to ask questions when so much of your story is told in carefully curated interviews? When you say you want privacy but also release documentaries. Her lips tightened. So a woman speaking her truth is now curated. You see how quickly a narrative shifts when it's a woman who dares to take ownership of her life. The tension grew heavier. Amanda tried to jump in, her voice soft. Maybe what Van's saying is. But Meghan raised a hand slightly. No, I think I understand perfectly. The director gestured quietly off camera for the team to keep rolling. The conversation had shifted from polite exchange to confrontation. Van took a deep breath. Look, Meghan, I respect what you've gone through. But I also think people want to see accountability, not perfection. The idea that you're above criticism doesn't sit right with everyone. Meghan's expression hardened. I've never claimed to be above criticism. But accountability should be fair. Not driven by tabloids, not manipulated by algorithms that profit off hate. John Krasinski muttered under his breath, we might need more wine. Lathan chuckled nervously, trying to lighten the mood. Hey, I'm not saying you don't deserve compassion. I'm just saying, everyone in this room has been through something public. But sometimes the way your team handles press feels calculated. That was the breaking point. Meghan placed her napkin gently on the table. Calculated, she repeated. You mean strategic. Like how every male public figure has a PR team to protect his image, but when a woman does it, she's manipulative. Van opened his mouth to respond, but Meghan was already pushing back her chair. You know, Van, I came here to have a thoughtful discussion, not to be dissected as if my humanity is up for debate. Meghan, wait, Amanda tried to reach out, but it was too late. Meghan stood, smoothing her blouse. This, she said quietly, is exactly why so many women walk away from public life. Not because they can't handle criticism, but because people mistake empathy for weakness. And with that, she walked off the set. The cameras kept rolling for a moment, capturing the stunned silence. Van looked down, clearly regretting the escalation. Damn, he muttered softly. That wasn't how I wanted that to go. Amanda exhaled. You challenged her, but maybe she's been challenged too much lately. John nodded. Yeah, there's a difference between asking questions and reopening wounds. Van rubbed his forehead. I wasn't trying to disrespect her. I just wanted to get to the truth. Jose Andres finally spoke. Sometimes the truth isn't found in the questions we ask, but in the grace we give when someone answers. The table fell quiet again. The director called cut. The producers whispered among themselves, unsure how much of that exchange would make it to air. Later that night, social media erupted. Clips of Meghan walking out went viral. Some praised her for standing her ground. Others accused her of being defensive. Hashtags trended within hours, Hashtag Meghan vs Van and hashtag Table for 5 meltdown. Van Lathan issued a short statement on X, formerly Twitter. Greater than, I respect Meghan Markle. Our conversation got intense, but my intention was honest dialogue. I wish her nothing but peace. Meghan's team remained silent for 24 hours, then released a brief message. Greater than, when discussions stop being about understanding and start being about judgment, walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. By the weekend, the clip had been viewed over 50 million times. And while CNN Table for 5 gained record ratings, the question lingered in everyone's minds. Was Meghan's walkout a moment of empowerment, or exhaustion from a world that never seems to let her rest? The morning after Meghan Markle's dramatic walkout on CNN's Table for 5, the world was buzzing. Every major news outlet replayed the clip on loop: Meghan's calm exit, Van Lathan's uneasy expression, and the shocked silence that followed. It had become the most talked about television moment of the week. Social media was divided. Some hailed Meghan as a symbol of strength, standing up against yet another public ambush. Others criticized her, accusing her of walking away instead of engaging in real dialogue. Hashtags like hashtag Stand with Meghan and hashtag Van was right battled for dominance across platforms. Inside CNN headquarters, producers were both thrilled and panicked. The episode had brought record-breaking views, but also a wave of backlash. The network's senior editor called an emergency meeting. "This is the most engagement we've had all year," one producer said excitedly. "Engagement doesn't matter if we're accused of setting her up," another replied. Van Lathan, meanwhile, stayed off social media for most of the day. He knew he'd hit a nerve, but the backlash surprised him. Messages poured in, some supportive, others harsh. A few accused him of targeting Meghan because of her past with the royal family. That evening, Van finally appeared on CNN Prime to address what happened. He looked composed but weary. "I want to say this clearly," he began. "That conversation was never meant to attack Meghan. I admire her. But tough questions are part of honest conversations. Maybe I came across harsh, and if I did, I regret that. But dialogue can't exist if we only talk to people who agree with us." The statement earned him cautious praise, but the internet had already made up its mind. Meanwhile, in Montecito, Meghan sat in her garden, scrolling through her phone as sunlight filtered through the trees. Her husband, Prince Harry, joined her with 2 mugs of tea. "You knew this would happen," he said quietly. "I thought I could handle it," Meghan replied. But the way he spoke, it felt like every headline I've spent years trying to escape. Harry placed a reassuring hand on hers. "You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You walked away with dignity." Meghan smiled faintly, though her eyes told another story. She had planned Table for 5 as a chance to show her human side again, not to relive old wounds. By the next day, every major outlet was requesting statements. The Guardian ran an editorial titled, "When Women Walk Away, The Meghan Markle Dilemma." The Daily Mail, predictably, published, "Meghan storms off, again." But one article stood out, written by Amanda Gorman, who had been sitting at that very table. In her op-ed for The Atlantic, Amanda wrote, "Greater than, that night wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about 2 people who carried different weights into the same room. Meghan carried the burden of being misunderstood, Van carried the burden of needing to challenge the powerful. What the world saw was a clash of pain disguised as debate." The piece went viral for its nuance, calming the heated online divide, at least a little. 3 days later, Meghan agreed to a short interview with Oprah Daily. She appeared serene, dressed simply in white, and spoke softly but firmly. "When I walked away, it wasn't out of anger," she said. "It was out of self-respect. I've learned that silence isn't surrender, sometimes, it's protection. That night reminded me that peace of mind is more valuable than proving a point." Oprah asked if she would ever consider speaking with Van again. Meghan smiled. "I believe in conversation, but also in timing. Sometimes, people need space to understand each other." Van saw the interview later that evening. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Fair enough," he murmured. Then he reached out privately through a mutual contact. A week later, Meghan's publicist confirmed that Van and Meghan had spoken privately by phone. No cameras, no producers, just an honest talk. Sources close to both said it was surprisingly warm. They discussed miscommunication, intention, and the weight of public perception. Van reportedly told her, "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just wanted truth." Meghan replied, "Sometimes truth needs tenderness." By the following month, CNN quietly uploaded a director's cut of Table for Five, featuring never-before-seen moments before the argument. Viewers finally saw the laughter, the shared reflections, and Meghan's thoughtful responses that had been overshadowed by the viral clip. Public opinion began to shift. People realized the full story was more complex than the trending hashtags suggested. Amanda Gorman later posted on X, "Greater than, sometimes walking away as part of the dialogue. Because silence, too, speaks." The episode went on to be nominated for a Peabody Award for Excellence in Public Discourse. Months later, Meghan and Van reunited, not on TV, but at a charity gala in Los Angeles. Cameras flashed as they greeted each other with a handshake and brief smile. There was no tension, only mutual respect. A reporter called out, "Any chance you two will do another conversation?" Van laughed. "If she invites me, sure." Meghan replied, "Only if we get to eat first this time." The crowd laughed, and for the first time, the story ended not with division, but with understanding. In the end, Table for Five became more than just a TV episode. It was a reminder that conversations can be uncomfortable, that truth has many layers, and that sometimes, the most powerful statement a person can make is simply to stand up and walk away.